Hey everyone, this is going to be a video primarily for the use for AP Psychology students for the AP test or just for their curriculum about the topic of consciousness. Now put simply, consciousness is basically being aware of our environment and of ourselves, and there's some sort of amount of mental interpretation with what we're seeing in our environment. Now, consciousness is sort of inherently subjective to some extent, so there have been a lot of different theories as how exactly to, explain the idea of consciousness. For example, psychologist William James defined it kind of as a stream of thought, while others say it's more of a mental reality that you can use to adapt to your world. The idea of consciousness lately has been studied more because of cognitive neuroscience, which helps us give a more objective view into the brain and what we're seeing. So there are three main parts of consciousness as a whole that you're going to want to know about. First, there's the conscious mind, the preconscious, and the unconscious. Now, the conscious mind does a few things. First of all, it restricts our attention. This kind of prevents too much information from overloading our brain so that we can focus on one thing at a time. It's a mental meeting place of sorts. It connects memory with emotions, motives, more things like that. And finally, it creates a model of the world for us. So that means we can reflect on past experiences, plan for the future, do some higher thinking like that. So the main focus of the conscious mind, it lies with restriction, combination, and manipulation. So the preconscious is relatively simple and easy to understand. Basically, it contains facts and memories that were once in our direct consciousness. And so, for example, you might think that the capital of the United States is Washington, D.C. Now, we all sort of know that to some extent, but we're not actively thinking of it. So basically, it's lying in our preconscious. The contents of the preconscious can move into the full consciousness relatively easily. Okay, finally we have the unconscious. Now there's two main interpretations really of the unconscious, I guess. First there's the modern, perhaps more scientific view, and this simply says that the unconscious is cognition without awareness. So this is for things like driving to school when you're going to school, but you're not really thinking of how you're driving, you just know that's the way to go. So that's one idea about how that's unconscious thinking there. It also goes along with breathing, blinking, just bodily processes. You're just not conscious of them at all, really. And then there's the more Freudian view by psychologist Sigmund Freud, who you should probably know about if you don't already. But he said the unconscious was sort of a mental dungeon of sorts. That's the bad part of the mind where you hold unwanted thoughts, motives, etc., and you try and keep them repressed. This is shown through examples in so-called Freudian slips where you're saying what you're really thinking. There's a lot about Sigmund Freud that just spans all of psychology as a whole, so I can't really get into all of that now, but those are the two main interpretations.